DCM works, asking the important questions, like if you fucked Jar Jar Binks, is that bestiality? It was probably a song that reminded me of it, or I'd done an Arnold Schwarzenegger voice.
Writing is definitely an isolating thing.
From an outside perspective, that's weird as
It makes
fuck.
us look really mental.
But that is
Because of what it kind of said about art.
I had fun in bits. There were fun bits.
we went and bought a value pack of Strepsils.
Oh my god, we did. There's a big lesson here to learn about storytelling. Hey guys, welcome back to the Art for Artists podcast, official podcast of digital and creative media works. My name is David, DCM, creative director, lead writer, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Ben.
Hello.
Hi. What's going on, Ben?
I'm sad.
Oh, why are you sad? Tell me
Oh,
about
well, it's almost... I'm glad you asked, David.
it. Wow.
BoJack Horseman, Season 3.
Yeah, it just
Yeah.
came out. So we're going to do the meaning of BoJack Horseman Season 3. So this was very different.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't cry this time as much.
I didn't cry the whole way through. I mean, let's just spoiler alert, because we're gonna spoil Look,
straight
as
off the
always,
bat.
it's the
Just-
if a name of the thing is in the title of the
Yeah.
episode and you haven't watched it, you're gonna get spoiled.
You really should. Just even if you don't have Netflix, just acquire it legally through your local distributor.
No, you can't.
just
It's
get-
Netflix exclusive. Just get a
Just
1
get
month
it.
trial of Netflix and
Yeah, and just watch BoJack Horseman.
You can get a 1 month trial for free. Just do that.
For me, this season was like, it was refreshingly different, because it was this kind of thing where it's like, it's pretty different to season 1 and 2. I wouldn't say it's the best season. I'd say it's better than season 1.
Yep.
I wouldn't. It's just because season 2 was incredible, but
Season 2 is still the best season.
Yeah. But this season was good because it was different. Like, it did a lot of things differently to the first 2 seasons, and it did a lot of things that I wanted it to do.
Definitely.
When we talked about what we wanted from season 3 back when we did the season 1 and 2 episode of AFA, shout outs. A lot of those things we wanted.
You just
were
shout ourselves out.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of the things that we said we wanted, like, we wanted more storylines with other characters, and we wanted closure of some sort. We pretty much got it.
We got a lot of the things that we were after. I think one of the things that I'm just looking up the episode listings now because it's been a little bit since I watched. I watched it like literally when it came out.
I've already seen it twice.
Wow.
I watched it.
Yeah, I haven't. Unfortunately, I haven't. I would have, but I haven't.
I've seen through it twice, and it's better on the second watch. Well, I mean, it's still good on the second watch through, because they, like, in typical BoJack fashion, and they've always done with all the seasons. There's just so many like foreshadows and like references to things that happen later on, and it's when you watch the show when you watch the season for the first time, it feels like some of the conversations that happened have like already happened. You get this weird thing where, like, when I was watching the first time, I was like, I'm pretty sure I've had this conversation. And when I watched it through the second time, I realized that there are so many moments where, like, one character will say something to another character, and then that character will say basically the same thing to a third character.
Yes.
Or another character will say the same thing to them.
Yeah, it's a very clever device because often what will happen is
It sort of triggers your deja vu, and you're like, I've heard this before. Like, I know what's going to happen.
But the outcome, the most interesting thing about it is the outcome of whatever is said will be different each time.
It's different both times, yeah. So
it's super interesting.
The one thing that I noticed the most was, because there's a pretty wide gap between it, is with Todd's really big rant at the end that he has at BoJack, episode 11 or no, it'd be episode 10. Episode 10. Todd goes on the big rant how BoJack's problems aren't because of, his shitty career or his alcohol or the drugs. It's because he's a shitty person.
Yeah.
And I was like, where have I heard that before? And it's actually something that the closer tells BoJack. She's like, you think that all of your problems are because of the drugs or whatever. and you don't want it to be because it's you.
But
and
it
she's consoling him, like she's trying to be nice to him because he's trying to get him to sign up for the LA Gazette, which I think is hilarious.
Yep.
But Todd's just being like, Todd says the opposite. It's like, it's not all these things. It's just you. You're just a dick.
It's really interesting how they can do. It's very intelligent writing where you take, in this case, like a line of dialogue, and through the strength of the writing of the show, you can recontextualize it to keep meaning different things.
Yeah.
And one of the kind of the through lines of this season is that, and it's noticeable in something as simple as like the sound design of the whole season, is that BoJack never really feels like he belongs this season.
Yeah, he's very detached from everything.
And like he literally feels disconnected from like almost everything, to the point where like he physically interacts less with the world this season. A lot of the time when he is on screen, he's not like doing an action, he's just moving, or he's like it's hard to explain, but like he physically feels more disconnected because of the way that they've animated and done the sound and stuff.
Yeah, I think like you could argue a lot less happens in this season, but a lot less happens in the context of really big important things like the Oscars. Like it's pretty much the biggest thing for BoJack because he's an actor and it's the Oscars, but it's, they have this contextualization of, oh, he's nominated for an Oscar or not really, and just that's basically that's his aim for the season, basically, is he's trying to get an Oscar. But nothing really happens because everything's not really in his control. Like he's not even in the movie. Like it's not him.
Yes, no, you're right, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's really interesting even when he reveals that to the reporter in the first episode. And he's like, oh, fucked up. Like, I told the manatee.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And, and his publicist just handles it. We don't know how. Like, there's literally, you're never told in the entire season how she handles it.
But it's just fixed.
She just says, it's handled. This isn't your job. Go do whatever. And it's like, it's so out of his control. And, I mean,
because everything is.
Yeah.
And even the fact that a lot of this season, we get a lot of flashbacks and stuff.
Oh,
it's already happened. It's beyond its control.
The 2007 jokes are just
very good.
There's like the one episode which is entirely in 2007 was like episode 3 with the really meta BoJack Horseman show. Yeah.
I mean that was like the writers were
just having fun.
Yeah.
And you could tell the voice actors were totally in it as well, especially with like the full Loco line. Like they were just dripping with sarcasm.
I mean, it's
they were just
very
like,
clever.
that is the correct amount of Loco, and you're like, oh my god.
Yeah, that was very much. Yeah, it was that before. Which is the episode where BoJack goes underwater?
Oh my god, episode 4? Okay.
So let's talk about that, because that's my favorite episode this season.
Oh my god, I had one spoiler for BoJack Horseman. Well, I had like 2. Because I watched it the first time like a couple days after, and that was like, it's a good season, and episode 4 is incredible, and that was all I had heard about season 3.
I didn't even have that coming.
So I was going in like I'd finished season 3, and I'm like, this next episode is apparently incredible, and it started, and I was just like, I immediately sort of got the gist of why it was incredible. I'm like, oh, there's no dialogue, this will be interesting, and I mean, it's pretty good. But it does it pretty well.
It completely blindsided me because I didn't. Because I didn't know.
If you didn't expect it,
because I just come off of flashback episodes. I was expecting a lot to happen, and instead you get this long, drawn-out think piece where you follow BoJack through this foggy haze.
Basically, Japan.
It's like Neo Japan but underwater.
Yeah,
and you follow him through this place where he can't interact or communicate. And he's got this shitty life. He's basically like, he's literally...
Well, they run that storyline, the father figure storyline.
Yeah.
They run it, the tried and true. We've seen it before.
You've got a kid that you gotta
and you gotta get back to the owners, and it's really sad because he's like, he kind of wants to keep the kid, but he can't, and it's like, like, I was like, it's that storyline, but I think how they bookend it with him trying to reconnect with Kelsey makes it more than that.
Yes, and then the final.
Oh my god, and the joke. Oh my god.
Well,
that entire. I laughed. I just lost it after that. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen.
It was one of those things where I was crying with laughter, and then I stopped and went fuck, because it's like that's such a that whole episode is an allegory for like BoJack's life in general. Like that, the idea is that him being underwater and not being able to communicate and living in this kind of haze is actually what his normal life is.
I mean, first time I was watching it, I literally felt like claustrophobic.
It's
at
tough
stages.
it's hard to watch.
It's really hard to watch, especially when you're in the context where it's just like he's stuck in that.
It's so
bubble.
frustrating.
Yeah.
And you keep expecting him to go into a room where he can drain the water
Where,
out.
yeah, I was like, where are the rooms where you can drain the water? I was
it
sitting there
doesn't-
waiting for it.
that's-
I'm like, I just want it to drain water, but they don't. They don't give you that comfort.
Because that's not how life works.
Oh,
But-
I was just like,
yeah.
there's got to. I was like, there has to be. I mean, if they're a land tourist, there would be a place that drains the water, but there isn't. There is not a single place.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, not even this hotel room.
It's just
was-
that was just brutal.
It pulls the rug on so many like. Well, I mean, a lot of people have been like, that's what it's like living. That's what it's like going to like another country where you have no like lick of the language or anything.
Kind of.
Where it's or you go to a new place and you just don't know anyone. Like it's super isolating
Mm.
because you're just literally stuck in a bubble. And then they make an episode where he's literally stuck in a bubble.
But like that, yeah, I know, but that's which I agree with, and I know that's kind of that's one of the things that it is, but that's not the point of why they did it. You know
No.
what I mean? Like they were basically just like, this is what his life is. Like,
Yeah.
and it's just sad.
I think one of the craziest things that I sort of realized for that episode, it was probably the second time I watched it, was that like BoJack's the only person who doesn't realize that they can talk.
Yeah.
When he's like when he's like talking, when he's sort of interacting with other characters, they're all sort of waiting for him to talk.
Yes.
But he
they're
just sort of
expecting
hand
it to.
gestures and they're like whatever. Like especially the director, he sort of just
Well, yeah, because
like at first he's like he just doesn't want to talk whatever. It's BoJack, he's an asshole. But the fact that Kelsey never talks to him, especially at the end, like she just reads like because he writes the letter because he thinks that that's the only way they can communicate, which I think is funny. And he writes that really amazing letter at the end, and she just like reads it, sees it's like she obviously can't read it because it's smudged. She doesn't just talk to him. She just like whatever, BoJack, just fuck off.
Yeah.
And she just keeps going, and it's like. It's so much worse because it's not the case of like, oh, she's busy and you know the thing is fuzzed out and they can't communicate any other way, so she
No.
just has to go. It's like no, she just doesn't want to talk to him.
Yeah. It's kind of
it's just so rough, and it's
Yeah.
because of the exact reasons why he wrote the letter, why she doesn't want to talk to him.
yes.
It's just so unfortunate.
It's rough, and it's one of those things where it reminds. So okay, so there's a few things that I want to get to, and I don't want to get too bogged down at this particular episode,
Yeah.
but but
because
it's so good. Like
I just want to end it by saying the soundtrack is incredible in that episode.
Yes.
Just amazing. 10 out of 10. All right, we'll move on.
Yeah, no, you're right. No, that's good. It is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
Actually, the soundtrack of this season was in particular quite special.
And the animation.
The animation this
It's
season
gotten
was
so much better.
but it's in the subtlest ways though.
Yeah, there'll be certain angles of the characters we haven't seen before,
Yes.
and you're like, that looks really cool and
Yeah.
new.
And it doesn't break the style of it. It's so
it
hard
just
to explain.
it looks like as if they've taken these 2D flats, which they've had for 2 seasons, like the same 2D flats, and they've somehow made it into a 3D model, and they've shown us another angle, and you're like, fuck.
But they always do it.
They
at
used
the
to do it when
weirdest
they need it,
moments.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like the slow-mo sweat scene. This is the weirdest
Ugh.
piece of animation. You're like, that's oddly cool.
It's cool, but I feel weird about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about what is what's her name? The young
Sarah Lynn?
Yeah, Sarah Lynn's
The one who
dad.
dies?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, so
I mean-
okay, can we talk about how equally frustrating that episode where they go on the bender is?
Oh, so fucking
So
annoying.
it's as frustrating as the underwater episode, but for a different reason, where you just have no idea what's happening. They go through like months or whatever.
They go through there's literally about a month of time that it goes through.
Yeah, and we're like, what happened to all the other characters? we were
Yeah,
following
like
in that
what's
month?
going? Well, it's like the other characters just don't give a shit.
And we yeah, we're like, it's the first time that we've seen, like he's on this bender and he
Well, it's
goes
the first time we see that much time pass
with no consequence.
with only following BoJack as well,
Yes.
except for the New Mexico episodes, which
Yeah.
is why they're similarly painful.
But it's just, I mean, there's 2 things that are really weird about that episode. The first is that no one cares.
Yeah,
So
no one cares that he's
He's
gone.
at Diane and Peanut Butter's house.
Well, I mean, because
and they're
that's
just like, okay, great. Like they're not even just like, oh, we're worried about BoJack. They're like, okay, this again.
at
right?
that stage he's already fired Princess Carolyn. He's
Yep.
sort of told Todd to fuck off, or at least that friendship is shaky at,
Well,
at
it's
that
yeah,
stage.
they haven't spoken in like
Yeah.
2 weeks or whatever.
And like Diane and Peanut Butter, Diane doesn't really want to hang around him anyway. Diane's really interesting this season. So he doesn't, and like Anna is basically just left because
Oh,
she was
God.
only in it for the Oscar, which is just so
That was
painful.
well, kind of. That was a brutal.
That
Like
was a weird.
it was a brutal moment because that story that she tells him about
Oh, the
when she
lifeguard
was a
one.
lifeguard, you're like, oh,
Oh, it's entirely true. Yeah,
that was one of those moments.
I love when he's just like, I don't get it. You're like,
Yeah.
BoJack, come on.
that was rough. It was funny, but again, like always rough. So in that drug bender episode, no one cares. Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane, they don't seem to care at all.
Yeah, they're just
Princess
like,
Carolyn just walks away because she's done with him.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
on the balcony when he
Yeah.
goes there, and then the only person who's there that seems to give a shit at all is Sarah Lynn, but for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, this is getting weird and dark, and then you get him going to.
to Ohio.
Oh my god. Okay. Yeah.
That's
and
just
so he goes
fuck, to stop opening that shit up.
to the.
Like
that was
the-
the feeling that she had when that happened
Yeah.
is literally the feeling you get when it happens.
It's
You're like,
just...
and the,
I,
I can't.
I think
yeah.
the worst part of that episode was when he brought it up. Like, not when he went to see her, but when he brought it up again at the like the alcoholics meeting or the 12-step meeting or whatever.
Oh my god.
Cuz that was like cuz they'd only really briefly touched, well, they mention the boat in episode 1, which is why he like freaks out when he's
Margot Martindale steals the boat. as
well, but in episode 1 when he's sleeping with the manatee, well, at least partially, she's like, I'm gonna climb aboard your boat because she's trying to be sexy
Again,
or
then he
whatever.
freaks out.
And he freaks out because of the boat.
God.
And, like,
oh
that's-
shit! I forgot about
Yeah,
that.
so that's like how it connects to season 2, but you don't get anything else until episode 11 when he brings up the whole story to the 12-step meeting.
No, you get the boat. You get Margot Martindale. I don't know which episode it is. It's in
Well, I
one of the
mean, yeah,
other
you get
ones.
Margot Martindale on the boat, but
no,
like
but she's I don't know. She steal. I can't remember if that happens. But I
she
think
does steal the boat.
Yeah.
But like you don't, like, BoJack doesn't he doesn't actively reference.
Well, he almost avoids talking about it.
yeah,
He never brings up New Mexico. Like
Yeah,
ever,
but, like-
until that meeting.
the audience isn't really reminded about it too much because he always has the boat.
Yeah.
You just kind of accept, yeah, he has a boat now.
He's got a boat now. Yeah.
And it's not like it's presented as a constant reminder of what he
No, it's
did
just an
because he still
artifact.
has it. If he was so worried about, what he did, he would have gotten rid of it.
Well, he's still got the burnt footstool from season 1. So like he just has artifacts.
Yeah, he just has things, I guess. Yeah.
Shit. What were we talking about? Now I'm thinking about the burnt footstool.
So episode 11.
Yeah, okay, so he goes to the Alcoholics Anonymous meeting where he basically
Bums
that's
everyone out.
that's his point of like no return. So in like a writing graph, so they call it the story grid.
Yeah.
That's why this guy is really talented. And it's basically this idea that you get to, every story starts at a baseline and it goes up and up and up and hits a point of no return, then it goes down all the way. And then you get to the end of the story with a resolution.
Yeah.
So you start in like a status quo.
Yeah.
Things get worse and worse and worse until the point of no return. Then things either get better and they go back down to the baseline, or they just
Yeah.
keep getting worse.
Yeah.
And that's BoJack's point of no return, where he decides not to make things better
Yeah.
for the third season in a row. And it was one of those moments where I went, oh. Okay.
Yeah,
and I
like-
was like, oh, he's actually never gonna
Like,
change.
part of me wants just part of me wants season 4 to be the last season, or at
Yeah.
least season 5
I
maybe
think
to be the
season
last.
4 might be.
I want an end. I kind of want it just to finish.
There will
in
be
this,
an end.
In this, yeah, but like in the sense where I don't really mind which ending we get, whether we get a bad ending or a good ending, basically.
I mean, if it doesn't, yeah,
like I don't really mind either way, but
It
it
will- yeah.
needs. It's like it's going to end soon.
they've
there's-
they've
'cause I
definitely
think-
got.
Because this season didn't really end on any like single horrible thing the way that season 2 did. Season 1 just ended in general.
This
apathy.
season ended on a pretty horrible thing.
Well, I mean, yeah, Sarah Lynn's death is.
No, not that. He was like, okay, I'll just die, I guess.
Well, he's done that at the end of like pretty much every season.
Yeah, but this felt.
No,
Okay.
that's the thing. Like it felt different to the other seasons, which is why I think it's the lowest point.
Yeah.
Like I don't think they can get any lower than what they are because I don't know. Is this general feeling over this season was just like so much apathy towards everything,
Yeah.
where it's like
Because
I
of
don't.
that because of that
It's
disconnection.
so disconnected. I don't think it can get any lower without just being sort of disingenuous.
Well, I think you're right. Actually, yeah, I know. I completely agree. I think the next step for them, because okay, let's talk about the ending of this season, because that's really where they kind of come full circle with the meaning of this season. So,
Yeah.
BoJack basically he's going to make a show with his old buddy from Horsing Around.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I'm gonna do this again. This is.
'Cause-
I was helping people. You know, Diane lies to him about watching Horsing Around as a kid.
I don't think that's a lie.
Ooh, see, I always assume. I just immediately assumed it was.
Really? I
Yeah.
thought it was legit, but I thought it was legitimate, but also because she told him because it was when, how do I put it? So she used, like, from her perspective, assuming she's not lying, she used, like, Horsing Around as an escape because their family on the show was, like, they were good and they were
happy.
nice and happy. But then meeting BoJack and Sarah Lynn and other characters, she realized that was all a facade.
And it was a
there's-
lie.
There
I
was
mean,
no such thing
her
as real
book-
happiness.
Yeah.
Yeah, so which is why I think she told BoJack Horseman, because in her mind, it doesn't really matter to her anymore. And she was just trying to help BoJack in a sense.
That's interesting.
That's why I don't think she was lying.
Hmm.
I think Diane this season acts a lot more like BoJack,
Yeah.
especially in the diner scene where she's complaining about the water.
The diner scene.
Towards the end, where she's just like, it's illegal to give out water unless people ask for it, when she's talking to her friend.
Oh yeah.
I think that's super BoJack, because it's such a BoJack thing to be in an important conversation with someone close to you and to derail it with dumb shit like it's illegal to serve water because we're in a drought.
Well, they're very similar.
Oh yeah, like Diane says it. Like she says,
Yeah.
we're super similar. That's why we have
Yeah.
to not be too.
Well,
not
no,
be-
I agree, because they feed each other's problem. You know, it's kind of like when you put two addicts in a room and you hand them a pile of their drug of choice, and you're like, "Well, I'm just gonna
We'll
leave."
keep
here."
each other accountable now.
And you're like, "I'm gonna leave and go to the shops, and you two bet on do any of this cocaine. I
Yeah.
want to see it all when I get back."
Yeah.
And then it's that kind of a recipe. But the season ends with BoJack kind of he goes to do the show, and he suddenly realizes, as he starts to do it, he gets flashbacks to Sarah Lynn, and he's like, "Oh, I can't do these shows with kids anymore.
Yeah.
It fucks people up.
Yeah.
This is where my problem started." Whether
Yeah.
or not that's true, that's what he believes. So he just basically leaves.
Well, he just panics. Like whether it's
Yeah.
for noble
He just has
reasons
a panic
or not,
attack
he just
and
panics.
leaves.
Yeah.
And he gets in a car. Well, he
Really
rents
nice
a car,
car.
we assume. And he just drives.
Yeah.
And he's driving out to the desert. What's LA? So desert isn't that far away.
Yeah.
And he just drives and drives and drives, and he eventually sort of there's this really amazing song playing, and he just kind of you get this. There's this one
It's a lot
really
of Christ imagery.
yeah. There's a really long shot there
Yeah.
where he's just staring into the distance, and they do it really well. Where the animation is so subtle, he just really slowly starts to close his eyes.
Yeah.
And he puts does he put his arms out? I can't remember.
Yeah, that's where the Christ
Yeah.
imagery comes from, and it does like an aerial view.
Yeah, and he puts
It does
his
an
arms out.
aerial view, locked onto the car, so you don't see the car slowly veer off. You just see the world slowly veer
Shift.
off.
Yeah, it's
So
really
it's,
clever.
so it's a lot more. It's a lot more like confusing. You're like, wait a minute. But
And so he doesn't crash, and so he opens his eyes,
yeah,
and he slams on the brakes and stops at the side of the road, and he gets out and he sees a pack of wild horses.
yeah. Those wild horses confuse me, man. Because they're wearing clothes, but they're really wearing really tattered clothes. So it's similar to the deer in season 2, I want to say, that they hit.
Yep.
Like he's wearing tattered pajamas.
Yes.
So I don't think they're wild horses, more that they're like off the grid horses.
Well, that's what I mean. They're
In the
sort
same
of,
way that like some people go off the grid.
That's
yeah.
well, that's how I mean. They're sort of they're kind of people that are getting back to their roots.
Yeah.
So I think what we might see either
Well, I mean, he was obviously sort of like having thoughts back to Secretariat.
yeah, and he's watching them run, and he's like, oh yeah, like it's that moment where you're like, oh, maybe like I
think this season there's been a couple of references to this season to like animals being animals rather than like humans, because in this like world that BoJack Horseman is the show has sort of created, where you have like humans and then you have animals being humans essentially, like anthropomorphized, and they don't have tails, but there's like references every now and then to animals acting like animals. So there's the kind of tongue-in-cheek mention of the manatees saying like, oh, we should do what nature does, like have sex like wild animals, and
Yeah.
BoJack is just like, yeah, manatee and a horse making out just like nature. and like you could argue the stripper whales at Whale World, which I think is the
Strip
funniest
whales.
gag in the entire
Yeah.
season. But there's a lot, like, there's sort of been a weird focus on the animals being more animals rather than humans.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's the line that the manatee says, I forget her name, where she says, "Are you more man than horse? Are you more horse than man?" Which some people say is a dick joke. I think it's a dick joke.
I mean,
but
it is, but it's not. It
is a dick joke.
It's BoJack, so it is a dick joke.
Yeah.
But it's also.
but it's also a reference
It's
to...
an interesting question too, because it's like, are you more like, because the whole
Well,
problem.
it's also in the credit song.
Huh.
It's at the end of the
interesting.
credit song, am I more horse than the man, or am I more man than the horse?
Because it's a really interesting.
Because I think the ending is him going... Because he's spent the entire 3 seasons so far basically being a human. You
Yeah.
know, he's played... He's an actor. He's played a dog. You know, he's played Peanut Butter in
Yeah.
season
Two.
2.
Yeah.
1.
Huh?
One of them.
Yeah.
Season 1, I think. You know, and he's
Maybe.
played human roles in other films. So he's obviously sort of considers himself like a human, but him then going out and seeing those wild animals, those wild horses, he's kind of like, for me, it's him realizing he's a horse.
Well, it's
And
it's maybe why he's so unhappy is because
because he's trying to be what he's not.
Yeah, he's trying to resist his nature, and that.
Well, because we don't really see any other horses.
Well, that's one of the really interesting things about the show. The only horses we've seen are his parents and Secretariat.
Yeah,
We've never seen another horse in the show except in that final shot.
which is his daughter. Let's be honest.
The daughter shot
Yeah,
as
it's
well.
his daughter. Like, let's be honest, it's his daughter.
Okay, so
there's
that-
a reference to his to
that
all the
was-
abortions that he paid for, and he's like, I hope
That
they
was a-
actually got the abortions.
That was
and
a
didn't just pay
crazy
for it.
like throwaway.
Yeah.
That was like, whoa.
I saw it. I was like, wait. I had to
What?
go back and be like, I went back and
No,
like
that was-
scoured all of like the walls, be like, well, who the fuck is this character? Like, who is this character? I'm like, it's
Steph, it's his
probably
daughter.
just her daughter. His
Yeah,
daughter.
it's his daughter. And if it's
Season 4.
well, the interesting
I
thing.
mean, she's gonna be in season 4.
Oh,
I mean,
well, she will. But the
guaranteed.
interesting thing about that, as an introduction this late in the game, shut up, birds. It's like sundown, so the birds are going nuts outside.
yeah, they're fucking freaking out.
I can see it like bouncing on the
Australia.
audio when we're
Yeah.
not speaking. Anyway, so you're definitely gonna hear that. So this episode features some sweet birds.
Featuring birds.
What's going to be interesting with that is you take the dynamic that he had with someone like Sarah Lynn, which is this weird fucked up like parasocial parenting
Yeah.
/ love
He's
interest
gonna apply
thing,
it to.
and he's going to have to suddenly be like, okay, how
An
do I
actual
remove the
parent?
rest of that to actually be
Well, I mean,
parent.
that's why episode 4 was that storyline. There's no other reason why
yeah
they would, like, you know, episode 4 could have been anything else, but they chose that really stock standard storyline. They bookended it with some good stuff, but when I got to that last point, I was like, episode 4 makes a lot more sense because it's like I'm sure they wanted, like, they obviously know that they're gonna do a daughter thing in season 4. That's why it's in the last episode.
yeah
But they obviously don't want to have to set it all up in season 4. They want to like kind of give it time.
in
to...
the way that BoJack does. They need to let it breathe.
Yeah, so they were like, we're gonna set up the fact that he can be a parental figure when he has to
You're
in,
right. That
in
is a
season
super
3, episode
strong,
4.
That's a super
And then we're
strong
going to
move.
introduce the sort of the hook for him having to be a parental figure. Well, there's like the hook for him failing as a parental figure with Sarah Lynn. And then they're going to sort of, maybe towards like the middle of
Yeah.
season 4, they'll be like, now he has to actually rise to the occasion and actually be a parental figure. And they've given it enough time to sort of dwell where it's not just like, why does BoJack have a daughter now?
Yeah, you're like, okay, well, yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, they've given themselves enough room to breathe with
Yeah.
it. And this whole season is about, once you watch it, it breathes, and you're like, okay, now I get. Oh, see, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Because that means that they've got a lot of potential to see how BoJack reacts when he doesn't have a choice. Like, because a lot of the time in his life, he has no control, right? But this is different. This is what happens when you give him control of a thing that actually matters.
Yeah, because it'll be the kind of thing where he won't have to see his quote-unquote apparent daughter. Like, they'll run the thing where he's just like, I don't have a daughter, and she'll be like, no, I'm your daughter. They're gonna do the thing where he doesn't want to, but then he eventually does. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
It could be
Like,
interesting. Like, he could just go for it straight away and fuck it up.
Yeah, like they
that's
could,
the kind of
they
point,
could
you
just
know,
ruin it again.
'Cause
Like, god damn
they
it.
don't give a shit at this
Yeah.
point. They're like, no, we'll do whatever we want. We don't care about you. Huh? You thought you liked BoJack? He's still the worst.
I mean, I kind of don't want them to do that. If they do it, I don't want them to do it as hard as the previous seasons, because I think, you know, if there's 2 more seasons left, which 5 seasons is pretty good for a TV show like this.
Yeah.
Like season 3 is definitely the lowest point. Like, kind of like, go up a little bit, maybe drop down a little bit at the end
And
of
then
season 4,
find a nice
and then
little-
just find somewhere at the end.
Give us some kind of. I mean, we'll get closure, but
I mean, we've had closure for a lot of things, but they just keep opening up new wounds.
Well, it's the weird thing is it's like you get closure, but the next thing that happens always reopens a similarly shaped wound.
The funny thing is that they give closure, and especially in this season, they gave closure to a lot of characters, but you just know it's just not what they want. Like, especially with Princess Carolyn, like, her relationship with the mouse isn't gonna work because she's a cat and he's a mouse. Like, they said that in the show.
Yes.
They were like, we know how this is gonna happen. And it's like, yeah, you're gonna, like, it's not gonna be good. But then
No.
they have a couple good dates, and you're like, no, it's not gonna end up. And they're like, we're happy together. It's like, no, it's not gonna work
and
out.
you get Princess
You're a cat,
Carolyn.
she's a mouse.
Yeah, and you get Princess Carolyn
Wanting to be a manager.
just the same thing,
It's
and it's
just
like,
the same
fuck,
thing.
like it's just this. Yeah, she has an epiphany that's wrong,
Yeah.
and that's such a fucking like that's so indicative of the show where it's like you get a character who has a final sudden realization.
He's
of
like,
a,
I'm
of
gonna do
universal
this. You're like,
truth.
no.
And you're like, no, it's completely wrong. Like it's just totally incorrect. And I think Todd had that this season as well.
I think Todd, I mean, they fucked up Todd. I mean, if you're gonna make him lose his money, do it in the next season. Like, give us the cliffhanger of Todd being a millionaire.
No,
like,
because what's great is that he's now because him and the girl, like she still has her money.
yeah, I think that's interesting.
that-
Well, I mean, he kind of got confirmed for being asexual.
That was a really nice.
I was
moment.
I was like, fuck, they're actually doing it, and
Yeah, it
not in a
was-
really bad way.
They didn't. It wasn't obnoxious. They didn't ham-fist it. He was just like, I don't think.
They
I'm-
also didn't pull the easy straw in 2016 of doing he's gay. They were like, we don't want to, like, they were like, okay, character who was confused, or like character who hasn't gone with the girl, and she's like, are you gay or something? We could just do the easy stick and just go, yeah. They're like, nah, we want to do a bit more nuanced, and I think they've done a good job.
It's
with it.
very honest to the character as well.
Yeah, because he's
Um,
never really shown any interest in females,
And they
except for the
would've-
weird times.
Well, they would have known from the start that they were like, okay, he's probably asexual,
Or he's probably just not straight, which is what he says. He's like, I'm not straight.
but he's
And
just
you're
not
like,
a
"Okay, cool."
he's just not a sexual person.
Yeah.
And that the way that they frame that scene is very like intelligent and interesting, and it reveals more about. Like, I think it's one of those times where it shows a lot that the creators of the show really are like, okay, in this world of horses and people that are fish, we can actually do some interesting things
and
with
birds
represent-
trying to commit suicide, but then forgetting that
remembering
they can fly. Yeah,
Like, in that context, they can still really powerfully be like, okay, here's really solid representation.
yeah,
And it not be, it doesn't talk down to you, it doesn't, like, condescend you, it doesn't put anything on a pedestal, it's not like social justice, it's just, well, this
yeah.
character's
It's
always
just
been
it's
this.
just there. Yeah,
And that's really what it should be.
Yeah.
Like, that's how you do that kind of thing, right? You don't be like, okay, this character's gay because we need a gay character. It's like, no,
you
Todd.
need the token gay character. You're
No,
like,
you're
nah.
like, you're like, you know what? Todd has evolved, and he's kind of always felt like he's been similar to this. And it turns
Yeah.
out, you know what? That makes sense, and that might change later because he might change as a person.
Yeah.
But for now, that's what he is, and I think that, that's a very it's almost the opposite of BoJack's arc, where he goes from being pretty sure of what he is to having no idea anymore.
Yeah,
Like, it's almost the complete opposite.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this season, like, ultimately, what they were trying to, I mean, they were always trying to say a bunch of things, but really, like,
Yeah.
the thrust of it is that you can go from a place where you think you want to be. So, like, in this case, it's like BoJack was like, okay, well, I know this Oscar thing is going to make me happy for a bit.
yeah.
You can go from that place through a whole bunch of other ups and downs and get to a point at the end where you still really have no idea what you should be doing or where you should be. And I don't know if that end scene is supposed to be positive or negative, but whatever it is, it kind of suggests that, like, regardless of whether or not you find meaning in your life or you find happiness, or, you find a relationship like Princess Carolyn and the mouse that's doomed to fail, or you're Todd
Yeah.
where you finally accept, whatever it is, it kind of doesn't really matter because there's always going to be two sides of you anyway. There's always going to be, like, the horse and the man.
Yeah.
And they're always, one's going to take over, one's going to take a back seat, and they're always going to change. And you're never going to be the same thing, and you're never going to be happy forever.
Yeah, I think that's why season 3 ended so neutrally. Season 1 ended on a fairly reasonably low note. It wasn't particularly happy. Season 2 was like a complete fucking nosedive into like a hopeful ending. Like the last few seconds of season 2 were like, okay, there's hope. But season 3 just ended kind of flat. But I don't think that's a bad thing.
Well, yeah, it's you're in the middle again.
Yeah.
You've gone up and down, and then you just hit the middle, and that's, you know, I mean, that's always going to happen. That's how life works. You go up and down, and you eventually come back to a middle point.
I mean, it's a middle point, but like a lot of things have changed, and I think that's the major thing.
Yeah. There's been a lot of lateral movement of characters and
pretty much every character, pretty much every character this season had some sort of connection with BoJack Horseman somewhere in their storyline.
Yep.
And they've all sort of either been strengthened and then lost, or just lost.
Yeah. Well, he's
basically lost everyone except maybe Diane and Todd.
Even then, it's like,
yeah, even then
he's just become this like toxic kind of. He's gone from being damaging to be around to just being toxic.
Yeah.
And I think we've hit this middle point where he can go either way. Yeah. And I'm excited to see what happens next, but I'm also.
I mean, it's gonna be another goddamn year till next season. I don't know how I'm gonna survive.
I don't know. We'll just have to watch.
Let's hope the Christmas fucking specials.
Excited.
Someone was saying that they want a Meow Meow pussy, whatever his name is, the cat cop.
Oh, the cat.
They just want like 4 episodes of him.
That'd be great.
Because he's so great.
He's so great. All right. Well, that's gonna do it for this episode, Ben. And as always, thanks to our patrons. Who, you know, they give us a little bit every month, and it really helps us out. It helps us keep the lights on. You know,
thanks, fam.
So to speak. And of course, we're powered by Hover.com, so all that stuff is in the show notes. You can grab all those links to our Facebooks, our Twitters, our MySpace.
We should get an Instagram.
We should do an Instagram. I don't know how to Instagram. We should get a Snapchat.
A Snap.
I don't really know what that is.
I don't know how to use Snapchat anymore.
But yeah, all of our social stuff is in the show notes. Hashtag AFAPod if you want to let us know what you thought of BoJack Horseman, or just tweet us at DCM_works. You can follow us on Facebook. We're at DCM Works Social. What have I forgotten? We're on YouTube. I don't know. It's all in the show notes. Let's look. It's I don't know.
All right, we'll see you guys later. Goodbye.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next week.
It was probably a song that reminded me of it, or I'd done an Arnold Schwarzenegger voice.
Writing is definitely an isolating thing.
From an outside perspective, that's weird as
It makes
fuck.
us look really mental.
But that is
Because of what it kind of said about art.
I had fun in bits. There were fun bits.
We went and bought a value pack of straps.
Oh my god, we did. There's a big lesson here to learn about storytelling.